Chinese President Xi Jinping was a no-show at this year's BRICS summit in Brazil. Beijing's official explanation coming down to a scheduling conflict. Xi's meeting with Brazil's president happened earlier this year. Now, this two-day summit that's happening in Rio de Janeiro, that's got diplomats from Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa, Egypt, Iran, and more. Vladimir Putin made a speech via video call, both Russia and China keeping their distance from Iran after, of course, that recent conflict with U.S. And Israel forces. But other leaders at the summit came out and condemned attacks on Iran, and they came out against the tariffs. President Trump seeming to respond on Truth Social. Any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS are going to be charged an additional 10% tariff. No exceptions to this policy. Let's bring in Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, you say that you suspect something deeper is behind his absence. And I want to add here, Maria has reported, her sources have told her that Xi Jinping suffered a stroke at some point. Tell us more.
Yeah, Maria was the first person in American media to actually talk about this. And I think there are only two credible explanations why Xi Jinping skipped the BRICS summit. One of them is because he felt that due to political turbulence at home, he could not afford to leave. And the second is that his political adversaries are now so strong, they prevented him from leaving. You know, we don't know because the Chinese political system is opaque, but almost everything we know about China probably is obsolete right now. And the thing that I worry about is that Xi Jinping now has incentives to disrupt the international system because he can see that the course of events means that he loses some or all of his power. And the only way he can stop that is to cause trouble someplace so that people will rally around him. This is an extraordinary, dangerous time, Cheryl.
Yeah, but again, to your point, and we'd heard this, I guess there was chatter about this last summer that something was going on with Xi Jinping. But at the same time, you know, you made, the more interesting point here I think you made was that he might be under pressure within his own country because of, I'm thinking, the tariff fight that they're in with the United States. That hurts the Chinese manufacturers. We've had reports of workers going out on strike, labor strikes, and massive protests in China because they're not getting paid, their jobs are getting lost, manufacturing plants are shutting down. Has that continued? And how does that politically play out for him, in your opinion?
When you add all the factors you mentioned together, what you have is a Chinese economy that is evidently contracting. And we can see this from the price data for the last 4 months. It shows consumer price deflation. And also for the last 32 months, the producer price index has been in negative territory as well. Deflation is an economy killer. So the economy is not growing at the 5.4% pace that they claimed for Q1. We don't know exactly where the economy is, but we got to remember they're also having their 2008 right now with their debt-fueled crisis. So really, the Chinese economy is in distressed state. And that's only one of the reasons why people are blaming Xi Jinping, because they look at all of his policies for causing these simultaneous crises that are affecting China at this moment.
Liz Peek's got a quick question for you.
Gordon, hi. When you talk about other forces in the Chinese government circling Xi Jinping and possibly pushing him aside a little bit, what do those forces look like? Are these pro-reform, pro-market forces, or are they even more dictatorial, autocratic, eager to control the entire economy as Xi has done?
Yeah, I think that he has lost significant control and probably total control of the Chinese military because the number one uniformed officer, General Zhang Youshou, is known to be his adversary. And we have seen Xi Jinping's loyalists in the military being sacked and disappeared. Among civilians, the evidence is not as clear, but there is a lot for us to say that Xi Jinping has lost influence there as well. You know, if Xi Jinping were to be sidelined, I think that it's almost inevitable that eventually you'd have someone who is more of a reformer than Xi Jinping, or at least a reformer as we would define it. For instance, Premier Li Chang, maybe a former Premier Wen Jiabao. But the point is that no one's going to be worse than Xi Jinping when it comes to the Chinese economy.
Right. That's interesting that you say that. Real quick, I do want to ask you about something very important to Americans here, and that's the issue of TikTok. So President Trump says he, quote, pretty much has a deal to have TikTok sold. He has mentioned in postings on True Social that it is, and in an interview as well with Maria, he talked about this, like it's an investor. He said 2 weeks. That's what he told Maria. So he says he's going to start talking to China as soon as today about this issue. But again, he first talked to Maria on Sunday Morning Futures. Real quick, watch this interview.
Like TikTok, I'm extending that, but no big deal. We have a buyer for TikTok, by the way. I think I'll need probably China approval, and I think President Xi will probably do it.
Who's buying?
I'll tell you in about 2 weeks.
A big technology company there.
Very, very wealthy people. It's a group of very wealthy people.
Last week.
So that was June 29th. I just want to point out, I'm just looking at the calendar right now, because I heard 2 weeks from President Trump to Maria. We're all waiting to hear more.
Yes, and I think that the only acceptable deal is that an American party takes over TikTok and the relations with China are severed. Remember, China has been using TikTok continually to steal the data of Americans, as well as they use the curation algorithms to not only propagate China's narratives, but also to promote suicide, to promote illicit drug use in the U.S. This is our country. China doesn't allow our apps. I don't think there's anything to talk about. I don't know why we're negotiating with China or why we need China's approval. This is a matter of national security for Americans. That's the end of the story in my book.
Yeah, I think, and I've said this to Maria as well, I think that, it definitely seems that the TikTok negotiations and the trade negotiations are really going hand in hand here. They're basically one and the same. So it's a very complex relationship we've got with the Chinese. Gordon, it's great to always see you. Thank you so much for being with us on this Monday.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Because the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that